At 86, Julie Andrews is facing a personal challenge that has captured the hearts of her fans around the world. Known for her legendary roles in Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, Julie has always been a symbol of grace, joy, and resilience. Recently, she shared a deeply emotional update about her health, confirming a diagnosis that has left many feeling for the beloved star. While she's been through a lot over the years, from her iconic career to her personal struggles, Julie has always faced adversity with unmatched strength. This latest revelation sheds light on a different side of the star, as she opens up about her journey and what this diagnosis means for her. This revelation gives us a glimpse into the challenges she's bravely navigating at this stage of her life. Julie Andrews, the timeless icon who conquered Broadway, Hollywood, and our hearts. Julie Andrews is a name that's become synonymous with timeless classics and unforgettable performances. Over the years, her extraordinary career in both film and theater has made her an icon, beloved by fans of all ages. Julie is best known for her legendary roles in some of the most beloved films in history, but her journey began on stage, where her talent first captured attention. One of her most famous roles is as the magical nanny, Mary Poppins, in the 1964 Disney classic. With her charm, wit, and heartwarming performance, Julie Andrews took the world by storm and earned an Academy Award for Best Actress. This role didn't just make her a household name, it made her a cultural icon. Mary Poppins remains one of the most cherished films of all time, and Julie's portrayal of the whimsical, kind-hearted nanny is still adored by audiences around the world. Then, just a year later, she cemented her status as a cinematic legend with another iconic role in The Sound of Music, 1965. Playing the spirited Maria von Trapp, Julie's performance in the film has remained one of her most iconic. The film itself became one of the highest-grossing movies of all time, and Julie's beautiful voice and presence in the role of the governess with a heart of gold have made The Sound of Music an enduring classic. But before Hollywood, Julie's star was already shining bright on Broadway. She was a standout talent in the theater world, starring as Eliza Doolittle in My Fair Lady and Guinevere in Camelot. These performances helped showcase her exceptional singing and acting talents, proving she was more than just a screen sensation. Her Broadway success laid the foundation for the global recognition that would follow in her film career. And let's not forget about her voice. Julie Andrews is known for her crystal-clear singing voice, which has become a hallmark of her career. Whether it was belting out Do-Re-Mi in The Sound of Music or singing Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious in Mary Poppins, her impeccable musicality and pitch-perfect voice became one of her most beloved traits. Her voice isn't just a part of her performances. It's a major reason why she's captured the hearts of millions across the world. Throughout her career, Julie has faced numerous challenges, including some major health setbacks that affected her voice. Even though her singing voice was no longer the same, Julie transitioned into new roles, including voice acting and television appearances. She voiced characters in films like Shrek the Third and played the beloved role of Queen Clarice Rinaldi in the Princess Diaries series. Julie proved that even after facing such difficult obstacles, her talent and love for performing would continue to shine through. She remains one of the most respected and admired figures in showbiz, proving that true talent and grace can stand the test of time. Julie Andrews and the role that changed everything. When Mary Poppins hit theaters in 1964, it didn't just fly in on an umbrella. It blew the doors off Julie Andrews' career. With her crisp British charm, magical voice, and that unforgettable sparkle in her eye, Andrews became an instant global superstar. Audiences everywhere fell in love with the practically perfect nanny who could sing, dance, and clean a room with a snap. It was a dream debut in film, and it earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Not bad for someone who had never done a movie before. But behind the magic and musical numbers, Mary Poppins was more than just a charming children's tale. It was the role that launched Andrews from Broadway darling to Hollywood royalty. After years of killing it on stage in shows like My Fair Lady and Camelot, the movie put her in front of a worldwide audience, and they adored her. However, being universally beloved isn't always as easy as it sounds. As much as Mary Poppins brought Andrews fame, fortune, and a firm place in pop culture, it also brought a bit of a dilemma: typecasting. Rumor has it, some Hollywood insiders worried that Andrews might get stuck in that wholesome nanny box. You know, always the kind, proper, motherly figure, sweet, safe, and squeaky clean. For an actress with serious chops and a deep background in live theater, that could feel a little limiting. Was she just going to play the magical British lady forever? The Mary Poppins curse. Was Julie Andrews stuck being practically perfect? Let's face it, if you say the name Julie Andrews, chances are most people immediately think Mary Poppins or The Sound of Music. A magical nanny with a flying umbrella and a guitar-strumming governess twirling through the Alps. Iconic, yes, but also limiting? That's what some people have wondered for years, whether those two beloved roles became a bit of a curse for Julie Andrews. Not in the spooky, haunted kind of way, of course, but in that Hollywood typecasting way. When you're so good at playing wholesome, charming, practically perfect characters, people start thinking that's all you can do. Andrews became a global superstar in the 1960s thanks to these roles. Mary Poppins made her a household name in 1964, winning her an Oscar right out of the gate. Then came The Sound of Music in 1965, and that was even bigger. She was golden, but some critics, and even a few folks in the industry, started whispering, is she too squeaky clean? Too perfect? Was Julie Andrews frustrated by it? Well, in the most Julie Andrews way, gracefully. She's spoken a bit over the years about how those roles definitely shaped how people saw her. And sure, there were times she probably wanted to shake things up and take on more serious or complex characters. But she never slammed her past. Still, she did make efforts to expand her range. Films like The Americanization of Emily showed a more sarcastic, edgy side. Later on, she worked with her husband, director Blake Edwards, on movies like S.O.B. and Victor Victoria, which played with more adult themes and gave her room to be clever and bold in different ways. She wasn't afraid to laugh at her own image either, which only made people love her more. Let's not forget, she reinvented herself again in the 2000s as the elegant Queen Clarice in The Princess Diaries and the voice of the Queen in Shrek. She kept things classy, but she also stayed relevant. Tension on The Sound of Music. Set, Friends. Eventually, when you watch The Sound of Music, Julie Andrews and Christopher Plummer have such great chemistry that you'd swear they were best friends from day one. But behind the scenes? Not exactly. Rumor has it, things started off a little frosty between the two stars, especially from Plummer's side. Let's rewind to the early 60s. Julie Andrews was fresh off her Oscar-winning role as Mary Poppins, America's new sweetheart. Christopher Plummer? A classically trained actor with a bit of a serious thespian vibe. He was more Shakespeare than show tunes, and The Sound of Music, with its singing nuns and dancing children, wasn't exactly his dream gig. He even nicknamed it The Sound of Mucus. So when they first began filming in Salzburg, Plummer wasn't thrilled. In interviews, he later admitted he found the role of Captain Von Trapp a bit stiff and bland. And yes, he could be a bit of a brat about it. Julie, on the other hand, was her usual warm and professional self, trying to make things run smoothly, but early on, he found her too sweet, too perfect. He once said she was so kind, so professional, so considerate, that it drove him a little nuts. But here's where it gets interesting. Despite that rocky start, something shifted. The more time they spent together on set, especially filming those romantic scenes, the more the ice started to melt. Plummer began to soften toward her, and the playful banter turned into genuine friendship. Julie has said they clicked almost immediately, though she later admitted that he could be moody and hard to pin down at times. There were even rumors of a flirty spark between the two, which both of them have addressed over the years with a mix of teasing and denial. Plummer called their relationship a lovely friendship, with perhaps a bit of chemistry. And Andrews once said they might have had a little thing if the timing had been different. But nothing serious ever happened, mostly just mutual admiration, sarcasm, and a lot of laughter off camera. By the time The Sound of Music wrapped, any early tension was long gone. They remained lifelong friends, often appearing together at reunions and events, always full of warmth and inside jokes. When Christopher Plummer passed away in 2021, Julie said she was devastated, calling him a cherished friend and praising his brilliance and generosity. The My Fair Lady drama Hollywood won't forget. So let's rewind to the early 1960s, when My Fair Lady was the talk of both Broadway and Hollywood. Julie Andrews had been absolutely killing it on stage as Eliza Doolittle. Her performance was charming, pitch-perfect, and totally unforgettable. Naturally, when it came time to adapt the smash hit musical into a big-budget Hollywood film, everyone just assumed Julie would get the part. I mean, who else could do it better? Well, enter Audrey Hepburn. Yep, the studio decided to go with the already world-famous Audrey instead. She was undeniably elegant, talented, and beautiful. But here's the thing, she couldn't sing the role. Most of her singing was dubbed by another singer, Marni Nixon. Meanwhile, Julie Andrews could have sung it in her sleep. So, cue the drama. Now, here's where Rex Harrison comes in. He played Professor Henry Higgins both on stage and in the film. The studio kept him, but they ditched Julie, and rumors quickly started swirling that Rex may have had something to do with it. Some whispers claimed that he didn't want to work with her again or didn't think she had the movie star look. Ouch. Others suggested he simply preferred Audrey's more cinematic style. Julie, being the class act that she is, never really fed the gossip. She didn't go on a press tour bashing anyone, but let's be honest, getting passed over for the role you helped make iconic had to sting. Still, she didn't let it hold her back. In an almost fairy tale twist, she went on to star in Mary Poppins that same year, 1964. And not only was she incredible, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress. And guess who didn't even get nominated? Audrey Hepburn. Yep, that had to have been a sweet moment for Julie, even if she never said it out loud. As for Rex Harrison, well, he won the Oscar for My Fair Lady, but his reputation took a few hits over the years. People called him difficult to work with, a bit arrogant, and not exactly warm and fuzzy with his co-stars. Whether or not he truly had a feud with Julie Andrews is still debated. Maybe it was just good old-fashioned Hollywood politics. Or maybe egos clashed behind the scenes more than anyone let on. What's kind of beautiful, though, is how Julie played it cool. She let her talent speak for itself and came out on top without throwing anyone under the bus. That Oscar win for Mary Poppins felt like karma doing its thing. A creative love story that didn't last. Before the world came to know Julie Andrews as the practically perfect Mary Poppins, or the singing governess Maria, she was simply Julie. a young woman in love with a charming, artistic guy named Tony Walton. Their relationship started long before she became a Hollywood icon, and for a while, it seemed like a real-life fairy tale. Julie and Tony first met as teens in England, and their connection was instant. He was a talented set and costume designer with big dreams, and she was already starting to turn heads with her voice and stage presence. As Julie's star began to rise on the West End and later Broadway, Tony was right there beside her, sketching sets and cheering her on. They were a creative power couple before that was even a thing. The two tied the knot in 1959, and from the outside, everything looked golden. Julie was starring in My Fair Lady, and Tony was making a name for himself in the design world. In 1962, they welcomed a daughter, Emma, who would later go on to work in the entertainment industry as well. For a while, it seemed like they were perfectly in sync. Both talented, both driven, and both navigating the ups and downs of showbiz. But as Julie's career took off, especially after her Oscar win for Mary Poppins in 1964, and then The Sound of Music in 1965, things got more complicated. Hollywood demands, crazy schedules, and constant travel started to take their toll. Julie was becoming a household name, and with that fame came more pressure, more attention, and, inevitably, less time for family. By 1968, the couple decided to go their separate ways. The split was amicable, at least publicly, and they continued to co-parent their daughter Emma with love and respect. Julie has always spoken kindly about Tony in interviews, describing their marriage as full of affection and admiration, even if it didn't last forever. A love story that weathered every storm. Julie Andrews might be known for her polished grace and magical charm on screen, but behind the scenes, her real-life love story with director Blake Edwards was one full of depth, struggle, and an unshakable bond. The two met in the late 1960s in a way that sounds like something from a quirky rom-com, passing each other in their cars on the way to therapy. Seriously. Julie later joked that it was the worst first impression she ever made. But something clicked between them, and by 1969, they were married. Their marriage wasn't just a Hollywood fling. It lasted over 4 decades, 41 years of love, growth, and navigating the ups and downs of life together. Blake Edwards was already a big deal in the movie world, best known for Breakfast at Tiffany's and the Pink Panther series. Julie, of course, had taken the world by storm with Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music. So, yeah, talk about a power couple, but it wasn't all red carpets and applause. Blake struggled with chronic depression and battled alcoholism, and those demons didn't just affect him, they impacted their marriage too. Julie has spoken openly about how hard it was watching someone she loved wrestle with such pain. But instead of walking away, she stayed. She supported him through it all, and he, in turn, supported her when life threw challenges her way. Together, they adopted 2 daughters from Vietnam in the 1970s, expanding their blended family and showing the world that love can grow in unexpected ways. Julie was already mom to her daughter Emma from her first marriage, and Blake had children from a previous relationship. But together, they created a home filled with warmth, creativity, and a whole lot of humor. Professionally, they collaborated too. Julie starred in some of Blake's films, including Victor Victoria, 1982, which allowed her to explore more daring roles and shed a bit of that squeaky clean image from her earlier career. Their artistic chemistry was just as strong as their personal connection, and you could feel that trust between them in the work they produced together. Blake passed away in 2010, and Julie has often said he was the love of her life. She still speaks about him with such affection, remembering the laughter, the struggles, and the deep understanding they shared. Their marriage wasn't perfect, But it was real. It had layers. It endured. The quiet heartbreak you might not know about. When you think of Julie Andrews, you probably picture the practically perfect nanny floating down from the sky in Mary Poppins, or the graceful Maria spinning in the hills of The Sound of Music. But behind all that movie magic was a woman who, like many others, faced heartbreak that didn't make headlines, miscarriages and struggles with infertility. Julie Andrews has always carried herself with incredible poise and class, rarely diving into the nitty-gritty of her personal life in public. But in a few quiet, candid moments over the years, she's opened up about something deeply painful. She experienced multiple miscarriages during her marriage to director Blake Edwards. It's not a chapter of her life that's been talked about a lot, but it adds a whole new layer of depth and resilience to who she is. Julie and Blake married in 1969, and while they were both already parents, Julie had her daughter Emma, and Blake had 2 children from a previous marriage. They wanted to expand their family together, but that dream was met with loss. Julie has mentioned at least one miscarriage publicly, and there are reports she suffered several. For someone whose public image was so polished and joyful, it's almost jarring to imagine the private pain she must have carried behind the scenes. What makes this story even more poignant is how Julie and Blake chose to move forward. After those heartbreaking losses, they made the decision to adopt. In the 1970s, they adopted 2 Vietnamese daughters, Amy and Joanna, as toddlers. Julie has said they didn't just adopt them, they rescued each other. It wasn't a backup plan, it was a conscious choice to create the family they longed for, just in a different way. Andrews didn't share many details about the miscarriages, maybe because she's always valued privacy, or maybe because that kind of loss is just so personal and raw. But her willingness to even mention it, in an era when women were expected to quietly endure that kind of pain, is powerful in itself. Julie Andrews in The Princess Diaries, a royal comeback. Just when you thought Julie Andrews couldn't get any more iconic, she showed up in The Princess Diaries and gave the world a whole new reason to fall in love with her. In 2001, at a time when most people were still associating her with singing governesses and flying nannies, Andrews stepped into a tiara as Queen Clarice Rinaldi and totally owned it. If you were a kid or teen in the early 2000s, this was probably your first time seeing Julie Andrews on screen. And what a first impression! She was elegant, wise, a little intimidating, in a good way, but always warm underneath all that royal polish. As the grandmother of Mia Thermopolis, played by Anne Hathaway, she was the kind of queen you'd actually want in your corner. No nonsense, full of grace, but never too stuffy to laugh. The movie's plot was classic fairy tale stuff. An awkward San Francisco teen finds out she's heir to a fictional European throne. But Julie brought this grounded charm that kept things from feeling cheesy. She wasn't just there to wave from a balcony and look regal. Queen Clarice had layers. She was juggling royal duty with genuine love for her granddaughter, and you could feel that emotional tug in every scene she was in. And let's talk about that chemistry with Anne Hathaway. The two had this beautiful on-screen bond that didn't feel forced at all. Julie played the part of a grandmother with quiet strength and steady affection. Never over the top, just believable and lovely. It's part of why the film hit so hard with fans. It wasn't just about becoming a princess. It was about family, identity, and growing into yourself. The Princess Diaries was a massive hit, and when the sequel rolled around in 2004, The Princess Diaries 2: Royal Engagement, Julie was back, this time with a twist. Even though her singing voice had been affected by her 1997 surgery, the sequel included a touching moment where she sang your crowning glory with Raven Simone. It wasn't about belting out notes like the old days. It was about connecting with fans and showing that she still had the magic. And yes, it made everyone cry a little. What's even cooler? Her role in these movies introduced her to an entirely new generation. Kids who grew up watching her as Queen Clarice later discovered Mary Poppins and The Sound of Music, and went, "Wait, that's the same woman!" Talk about staying power. The tragic loss of her voice, a heartbreaking tragedy. Julie Andrews, the woman whose voice once floated through theaters and living rooms like a dream, faced one of the most heartbreaking turns of her life in the late 1990s. It's hard to even imagine, but the same woman who gave us Do Re Mi and A Spoonful of Sugar was suddenly left unable to sing a note. And it wasn't because of age or choice, it was because of a surgery gone terribly wrong. In 1997, Julie underwent what was supposed to be a routine surgery to remove non-cancerous nodules from her vocal cords. Now, for a singer, this kind of thing isn't unusual. Vocal nodules can happen from overuse, stress, or even illness. But with modern medicine and the right hands, the procedure is generally safe. Julie went in expecting a quick fix, but came out with her world flipped upside down. The surgery, unfortunately, damaged her vocal cords permanently. Her signature 4-octave range, the very thing that helped make her a legend, was gone. And not just altered, gone. For someone whose entire identity had been wrapped in music since childhood, it was more than just a medical mishap. It was a loss that ran deep into her soul. At first, Julie tried to stay optimistic. She hoped her voice would recover with time and therapy. But the damage was done, and nothing brought it back. She later described the experience as devastating and a kind of death. And really, who could blame her? For decades, she'd been the voice of magic, elegance, and strength. And suddenly, that part of her was silenced. Julie ended up filing a malpractice lawsuit against the doctors involved, eventually settling out of court. But even with legal closure, the emotional toll was immeasurable. Fans around the world were stunned, heartbroken, but also incredibly moved by how she handled it. Here's the thing, though. Julie Andrews didn't disappear. She didn't let the loss define her in a tragic way. Instead, she pivoted. She found new ways to share her gifts through acting, voiceover work, and storytelling. Think about her memorable role as Queen Clarice in The Princess Diaries, or her voice work in Shrek as Queen Lillian. Her presence still brought comfort and joy, even if she wasn't singing. She also threw herself into writing, co-authoring children's books with her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. In her soft, graceful way, Julie showed the world that you can still be a powerful force, even when life changes you forever. Julie Andrews and her big heart, a spoonful of kindness for every child. We all know Julie Andrews for her practically perfect performances as Mary Poppins, Maria in The Sound of Music, and even Queen Clarice in The Princess Diaries. But off-screen, she's just as magical. What you might not know is that Julie Andrews has spent decades using her fame to support something very close to her heart: children. Julie's love for children isn't just something she plays in movies. It's something she lives. Over the years, she's been a passionate advocate for children's rights, education, and literacy. Her mission? To help every child find their voice and reach their potential, no matter where they come from. One of the most personal ways she's done this is through her work as an author. That's right, Julie Andrews has written a lot of books for kids, many of them co-written with her daughter, Emma Walton Hamilton. Together, they created the Julie Andrews Collection, a series of books that are sweet, empowering, and filled with life lessons. From The Very Fairy Princess to Mandy, Julie's stories always celebrate kindness, imagination, and courage. She once said that storytelling is a way to connect with kids on a deep level, and she's totally right. But Julie's commitment to kids goes way beyond writing. She's supported a number of charities and organizations focused on improving the lives of children around the world. One of her longtime causes is Save the Children, a global organization that helps kids in crisis, from war zones to refugee camps to impoverished communities. Julie has spoken out on behalf of children's access to education, clean water, and health care, and she's never been afraid to use her voice to make a difference. She's also been deeply involved in promoting literacy and early childhood education. Through her work with organizations like First Book and the National Literacy Trust, she's helped provide books and resources to underserved kids. Julie firmly believes that reading opens doors, and she's made it her mission to put books into the hands of children who need them most. And let's not forget her work in the arts. Julie is a fierce advocate for arts education, especially for young people. She knows firsthand how music, theater, and creativity can shape a child's life, just like it shaped hers. Whether it's supporting school music programs or hosting children's concerts, she's always looking for ways to inspire the next generation of performers and dreamers.